Carolyn McCall is the CEO of Guardian Media Group. She's spent over 20 years there and is their CEO. And she's an example of a very successful young media executive. And she's going to share with us today her secrets of being a CEO. Good to see you again, Carolyn.
Andrew.
Thanks for making the time.
Pleasure.
There's a range of topics I'd like to talk about, but perhaps we could maybe kick off with the web, knowing how fundamental it is to you at GMG.
Yeah.
Could you just talk a bit about the transition going from a traditional print media towards a web-enabled, multi-channel business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the web's been around for a long time. And I think what people forget, really, they talk about the web as a fairly new medium. But actually, we've been doing this now in two of our businesses for about 13, 14 years. So Guardian Unlimited, now called Guardian.co.uk, launched 12, 13 years ago. Auto Trader, which is a very successful digital transition, same timing. So actually, we've been doing it for a long time. It's become what we do. So I don't have the same issues, I think, as old media versus new media, because I just see us as media. You know, because we are going forward, the future is going to be far more digital than print. And that's just the way it is. I think it's very interesting, since I've done the job at group level, seeing businesses where they haven't embraced the web. So regional newspapers traditionally have tried to do things on the web, but have not really made any traction. And that's quite interesting, because that transition is much more painful, much more difficult, because it's still new to them. So actually, they've only really been grappling with that for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think there's a big difference with businesses who embraced it very early on, like Auto Trader and The Guardian, and businesses who have come to it quite late and are now making their way in a very fast-changing world.
And when you talk about the fast-changing world and the web, where do you see it going over the next couple of years?
I think, we all say we're multimedia, but we're not sufficiently multimedia. So, for instance, we are doing video now, but we're going to do a lot more of it. We'll do a lot of audio. I mean, The Guardian is the second largest speech broadcaster in this country after the BBC. Audio. Now, 2 years ago, we weren't in audio at all. We didn't do any audio. That's a huge step change. So I see a lot more of that. And actually, I also see it's going to be multi-platform. So, I was talking 10 years ago about media being available anytime, any place, anywhere. 10 years ago. It wasn't really possible. It is possible now. So whether you're on a PDA, whether you're on mobile, with smartphones, with the iPhone, the way you use your phone now is completely different. And The Guardian needs to be on all those platforms. So does Auto Trader. So does Smooth Radio. You need to be able to download music. And that's going to happen, So that is the future, in my view, which is, wherever the platform is, our content has to be available on it.
So from a content absorber point of view, it's wherever there are any part of their life, and any platform essentially.
Exactly. And so we need to make it very easy, because users are very promiscuous. They're quite if they can't find something on one platform, they'll just go and try something else. So to keep our users loyal, we need to make it very easy for them to find us.
I'm with you.
Whatever our brand is.
And do you think in the future, do you have a view on virtual worlds? Because we were talking to Philip Rosedale in Second Life, and we interviewed him in Second Life. And he talks about it being you talk about 1994 and the web development. He feels that's where virtual worlds are, but different people have different views. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that, but I think it is very appealing to certain communities, to certain kinds of people. And I think the younger you are, the more you get it, actually, the whole virtual world thing. And we were on Second Life, so The Guardian actually entered Second Life in a very early phase because we wanted to experiment. I think that's one of the key things I love about digital, is that it's through experimentation that you actually make mistakes or gain successes, but you learn all the time. So the answer to your question is, I have no idea about virtual worlds. I think it has got a constituency and it's growing. And I think it'll be part of many things that one person might spend their leisure time on. It'll be part of that fabric. It won't just be about TV or papers or radio. It'll be social networks, TV, radio, etc., etc., etc.
Okay. And I suppose the other question is, predominantly your business is heavily reliant on technology.
Yes.
There are a lot of other CEOs that I speak to who really admit that they don't really get the technology at all, or even some members of their boards as well. Any thoughts on any advice for other CEOs who are trying to sort of get their mind around the web 2.0, 3.0? And because I think a lot of them struggle with trying to sort of experiment in traditional management structures.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love technology. And I love gadgets and widgets. I love all of that. But I'm not at all technical. I have no technical grounding whatsoever. And I think one of the things that I've done for a long time now, for the last 15 years, is once a year or once every 18 months, I just kind of go away, usually with the editor, and we have 3 or 4 days where we just go and meet a whole load of companies, and a lot of them are technology companies, and they're tiny little companies doing different things. And I think when you're away from your normal environment and you're able to ask any questions you like. So I spent a day on the Microsoft campus about 4 years ago, and it was fascinating. And you know, I think that's brilliant because it takes you out of your comfort zone. You can ask anything you like. You can look at gadgets. You can look at what they're doing. You can listen to what they're doing. So I think that's quite important because you need to, I think as a CEO, you need to keep learning, and you do need to understand how technology can enable your business, but also how consumers respond to technology.
Yeah.
So things like the iBook, or the thing that they're experimenting with, which you can fold up, you know, a screen that you can fold and just put under your arm. All of that, I think, is quite important to just keep abreast of.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've done here, because technology is so imperatively important to us, I mean, it's just such an important part of our business. We've set up a technology advisory board where we've been the CTOs of all the companies together, web development and kind of physical infrastructure, because there's quite a big difference between those roles. And then we have got 2 or 3 outsiders who are people who are only in technology and really understand technology, but are accessible to come and sit on that technology advisory board, and we will pay them a fee. Not a very big fee, but we'll pay them a fee, so that we're getting counsel and we're getting debate going about future facing things, you know, what might be coming up and how we should be looking at it.
Yeah, that sounds a great idea.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I mean, that in some ways, does that help you with, you know, the shift from the paper content, you know, and the potential tensions? It sounds like you've gone down the track quite a way. And the sort of cannibalisation argument or the opposite.
That was years ago. I mean, the cannibalisation on paper was a long, long time ago. You know, the debates about, and I had no truck with that, really. I mean, I was just a very, rightly or wrongly at the time, and the jury was out. I mean, it could have gone either way, but I didn't believe the cannibalisation argument. So it was obviously going to cannibalise you, both in paper sale and in ad revenue, particularly recruitment, classified, or cars or property. However, you know, my view was if you got more of the cake, you were winning. So if it went on the web and you were still keeping some in the paper, but you were growing your share of that client, you were going to gain. And you know, that has been more our philosophy going forward. Now, that's not to say it's not been challenging in parts. It's very difficult to get traditional sales teams, you know, who have a mindset which is, you know, I sell the paper, I get very high yield on the paper, you know, I'm not, why am I going to do digital, you know, there are all sorts of tensions, but I think you really have to, from a very, you know, top down, in a way, philosophical perspective, say, this is what we're aiming for, this is what we're going for. There's a big cake out there, and there's a lot of opportunity, and we need to look at it like this.
Yeah, excellent. So it's actually, it's better for you to do that rather than somebody else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and we set up a website about 9 years ago, which was a job website, separate, called Workthing, which I had a huge amount to do with. Launched it, really hacked off the people on the paper, actually, who were selling job advertising, even though we explained that all the money from Workthing would finally come to The Guardian. It was still a very deeply difficult thing for them to get. The only way to have done that successfully was to do it separately at that time. Because we couldn't have launched that from within.
Right. And then gradually